Oops, oh, I'm live. All right, guys, welcome to part two of my Jodie Arias marathon, my Jodathon, the bespectacled and demure victim that is Jodie Arias. So we went through the opening statement and the first part of the first day of the cross-examination. So I'm going to go through part two and part three of the first day of the cross-examination. There's so much to go through. I mean, Jodie was on the stand for 18 days. Okay, so half of that is going to be uh, her on the stand from the defense, and half of it is going to be from the prosecution. And I want to go through all the prosecution cross examination. So that's about 9 days. And I also want to go through Alice Lafayette as well, which is going to be 3 or 4 more days. So it's going to be quite a lot to go through. But just before I do that, I just want to give you some bullet points here just for the timeline so you have this in your head. So here, this is the date that Jodie hired her vehicle down in California, and she actually took the trouble to hire it from a different city in California. This was so premeditated. And she got the gas cans shortly after picking up the car. She got 2 gas cans, and it was a 5-day trip that she was going on for as part of her job, right? And she was arranging to meet up with her new boyfriend, which is Ryan Burns, and he stays out in Utah. Um, but of course, what she had done on that same day is she was calling Travis 4 or 5 times, and then they finally connected, and she obviously arranged to go and meet him. And June the 4th is the day that she actually arrived and spent some time with him. They took some pictures, and that's when he died. And June the 5th is when she went to visit Ryan Burns the following day, and she arrived home on June the 7th. And there was a girl that was due to go on the trip with Travis down to Cancun, and she was obviously getting worried because she hadn't heard from Travis in the lead up to this date, because he was due to leave on that day, I think, on the 2nd, and or the following day, I think. And so she had got in touch with some of his friends, and then they went round on June the 9th, and that's when they found his body. And what is crazy as well is that he shared his apartment, well, it was really a house, but he shared it with 2 or 3 other flatmates. And one of the flatmates was actually there at the house when the friends went round, and he'd even noticed that there was a smell, but they didn't. They weren't suspicious in any way, and that's when they found him. Hey, happy thoughts. How are you? Hey, Calm and Chaos. Good to see you. Okay, so what I'm going to do is jump over to the next part of the trial here. And guys, if you can just put a 1 if you can hear this, okay?
Please be seated. The record will show the presence of the jury, the defendant, and all counsel. Exhibit 458 is admitted. Mr. Martinez, you may continue with cross-examination.
Then when we left off, we were talking about the issue involving the Tootsie Pops and the Pop Rocks, and that can be referenced involving somebody named Lonnie and their baptism, correct?
Yes.
And regardless of whether it happened on a Sunday or Thursday, that's the same incident because you missed Lonnie's baptism, right?
Yes.
458 is the entry for Sunday, January 20th, 2008. Do you see that?
Yes.
And it starts out, well, I'm at the Institute building, Dobson and Southern, the sister missionaries, correct?
Yes.
There are some 2 blank pages and then a third page that begins and says, so I went to the church building and met with the sisters and gave them a ride to the Institute building where I am now, correct?
Yes.
That's part of the same entry for that January 20th, 2008 date, correct?
Yes.
There are no, in the whole body of that particular entry, there are no other dates mentioned, correct?
There's another day reference, but not a date.
I'm asking dates, aren't I? Right?
It's implied. It is referenced.
No, I'm asking dates. Do you see anywhere in those 5 or 6 pages another date?
Yes.
Show me.
She just cannot stop herself pushing back in her pedantic way. She cannot help herself.
Where there is another DATE date in exhibit 242.002.
I'm counting this as a date where it says Thursday.
It says Thursday night, though, doesn't it?
Yes.
It doesn't say a date, does it?
No.
And we're getting to it when it says Thursday, that's at the lower right-hand corner of this exhibit number 458, correct?
That's correct.
And your testimony involving the pop rocks, exhibit number 457, does indicate that you thought it was a Thursday, right?
Yes.
You indicated previously that you were having trouble remembering it. Did this exhibit refresh your recollection?
Yes.
And so you indicating I'm sitting with next to Sister's Knight, who's totally trying to read this, and Lonnie, who was just confirmed today, right?
Yes.
And that's the Lonnie that we've been talking about, right?
Yes.
He was baptized Thursday night, which is the date that is referenced in your previous testimony, right?
Right.
Shame on me. I was, quote unquote, wrapped up in other activities that pulled me away from attending the baptism. And the reason that's in quotes is because you're trying to get across something else other than being wrapped up, right?
Yes.
You're trying to get across that this involved a liaison or a sexual liaison with Travis Alexander, right?
Yes.
And you said namely work, but then getting prepped to go to Travis's house for the night, where we explored every naughty fantasy we could conjure up in our fruitful imaginations that we haven't already fulfilled with one another. I love him, I really do, right?
Yes.
And the fantasy that you're talking about involved the Tootsie Pops and Pop Rocks, correct?
Part of it did, yes.
Part of it, well, man, this transcript that we talked about only talks about the Tootsie Pops and Pop Rocks, doesn't it?
No, it mentions bubble bath.
It mentions what?
The bubbles.
And the bubble bath is part of the Tootsie Pops and Pop Rocks, right?
They were separate the same night.
Same night, is that how this reads then?
Thanks for clearing that up, Jodie. Thanks for that.
Transcript, is that how it reads?
I don't know if it reads that way, but
Well,
that's
then
what it
take a
is.
look at 459, which is the partial transcript, and see if that's how it reads, that it's different.
Different how? I don't know. what you
Well, the way you were trying to tell me that it was different, that it talks about a different sequence of events.
Yeah, the wrapped up Alice was our sexual illusion.
mean. Yes, it references two different sequences.
Which two
events.
Are you talking about the issue involving the bathtub?
Yes.
Isn't that part of the Tootsie Pops and Pop Rocks and engagement, if you will?
Not in the bathtub.
It didn't happen on the same day, man?
Same day, yes.
same encounter?
Yes, I guess.
Well, no, what I'm saying is, did he ejaculate twice that night?
Yes.
So are you saying that when you were involved in the bathtub, that was hours later than the Tootsie Pops and Pop Rocks? Is that what you're saying?
No.
It was part of the same encounter, wasn't it?
Yes, I guess.
When you keep saying, I guess, you were there though, right?
Yeah, I was there.
And you were enjoying it, weren't you?
Yes.
And you enjoyed the Tootsie Pops and the Pop Rocks, correct?
I enjoyed his attention.
No, I want to know if you enjoyed the Tootsie Pops and the Pop Rocks. I'm not asking you about his attention.
Overruled.
I can't say enjoy would be the right word.
Well, what you're saying is, when we talk about the Tootsie Pops and the Pop Rocks, you're saying you didn't enjoy it, did not enjoy it,
I'm
correct?
not saying that either.
Well, there can't be a middle ground. You either enjoyed it or you didn't.
She's actually enjoying herself right now. She's enjoying the joust. She genuinely sees herself as being superior to Juan Martinez. She really thinks she's going to come through this unscathed at the end. Little does she know what's coming.
Right?
That's not correct.
Oh, so in your view, you can go through an act and not enjoy it, but also enjoy it. What are you trying to say?
Am I allowed to tell you what I'm trying to say?
I want to know whether or not you enjoyed it.
I wouldn't characterize it that way.
So you're saying you did not enjoy it? Just want to be
If
clear.
you're speaking only in the context of the Tootsie Pops and the
And
Pop
the Pop
Rocks,
Rocks, sure.
I wouldn't call it enjoyed.
You would not say that you enjoyed it, right?
I would not say enjoyed.
And if we then take a look, though, at exhibit number 458, which references that encounter involving Lonnie, right?
Lonnie, no. You mean,
It didn't involve the baptism involving Lonnie?
I don't understand your
Well,
question.
then let's just take a look at it, okay? We're talking about, irrespective of the date,
Hey, Raven.
reference that as Lonnie's baptism. Just for point of reference. You remember we talked about that, right?
That's right.
During this encounter that we've been calling Lonnie's baptism, there were some Pop Rocks and Tootsie Pops that were involved, right?
No, Lonnie's baptism did not involve Tootsie Pops and Pop Rocks.
Ma'am, we both know what we're talking about. This journal references Lonnie's baptism, doesn't it?
Yes.
And you missed Lonnie's baptism, right?
Yes.
And the reason you missed Lonnie's baptism is because you were having a Tootsie Pop placed somewhere, right?
Yes, that's one of the reasons.
Okay, and this exhibit here, exhibit number 458, does say
It's a live, Raven. For once, I'm actually live.
that you explored every naughty fantasy we could conjure up in our fruitful imaginations that we haven't already fulfilled with one another, right?
Yes.
This doesn't say that you didn't enjoy it, does it?
No.
It does say you did enjoy it, doesn't it?
I don't see the word enjoy in there.
No, did I say the word enjoy was in there?
Yes. You
I
said
did
it
say
said
the
I
word was
enjoyed
enjoy
it.
there? It says you explored every naughty fantasy we could conjure up in our fruitful imaginations. You're saying that having a fruitful imagination, that's not enjoyment, is what you're saying, right?
I'm not saying that.
And you're saying that every naughty fantasy, that's a bad thing, right? That's what you're saying.
I'm not saying that.
Well, the Pop Rocks were part of this naughty fantasy, weren't they?
Part of it, yes.
And they were part of fulfilling your imaginations, right?
His imagination, yes.
Oh, so it wasn't, so even though you wrote it, he didn't write this, did he?
I wrote it.
That's right. And
Yeah, Alice, this is in her diary. I don't know how they got it as evidence. Gotta be honest, I think they maybe because she was living with her grandparents at the time that this happened, so I think maybe they just went down and picked up some evidence.
those are your words, right?
Because she voluntarily went into law enforcement before they even contacted her to see if she could help. She was one of these ones that tries to get ahead of the game by being close to law enforcement. and that didn't work out for her.
Yes.
And so even though you say haven't already fulfilled with one another these fruitful imaginations and all of that stuff, well, that doesn't really mean what it says. Is that what you're saying?
I'm not saying that.
Well, it doesn't distinguish between pop rocks and it doesn't distinguish.
So just to answer your question, Carmen, there, what is the point of going over this here? I think because the strategy of the defence is that they've come up with this defence that she was abused, that she was battered, that she was verbally abused, and he was demanding of her sexually constantly, and trying to sort of give the impression that she was kind of trapped and this was all against her will and she had PTSD as a result of all the abuse that she was taking. That's the defense line, which is obviously bullshit, right? But notwithstanding the fact that it is true that Travis was incredibly cruel to her and he did treat her terribly. I mean, he was still seeing her and having intimate relations while he was dating other girls and just leaving her, on the end of the fishing line, So Juan Martinez here is trying to establish the fact that it was completely mutual, that they were both, complicit in their sexual exploration, just to kind of undermine the defense's point. I think that's what's going on there.
Between top.
Yeah, that comes up later, Happy Thoughts. It's disgusting, isn't it? It reminds me of the tactic that they used in the Casey Anthony case, just paint the worst possible picture they possibly can. In this case of someone is deceased can't defend himself, and in Casey's instance, her own father, who, how torn must he be? He wants to see his daughter free, yet he's being accused of the most heinous thing. That would rip anyone to shreds.
Tootsie Pops, does it?
No, it doesn't.
And yet you're saying here that they are different, right?
No, that's not what I'm saying.
What you're saying goes against what's written there, doesn't it?
No, it does not go against it.
Where? Show me here. Point it out where it says, I did not enjoy the Tootsie Pop encounter. Does it say
I
that
didn't
anywhere
write
there?
anything like that in my journal.
It doesn't say anything there like that, does it?
That's correct.
And it doesn't say anything there that you did not enjoy the Pop Rocks encounter, does it?
Yeah, pretty much, Cameron.
And nothing prevented you from writing that in there, right?
That's right.
And you could have written anything that you wanted. It's not like you didn't have pens, right?
Yeah, that's right.
And you had enough space to write it because we know there was an entry after that, right?
Yes.
And it's a situation where you considered this to be a secret kind of thing, so that if you wrote whatever you wanted there, you had a reasonable expectation that it would remain private, right?
Reasonable.
Which means you had an expectation that it would remain private, right?
More hope.
Well, you were living with another individual. I think you said Rachel, correct?
Not at this date.
Okay, where were you living?
I was living at 9634 East.
Yeah, it's fascinating, Carmen. And this is another one of these cases where there's no doubt about the guilt. I mean, there wasn't a person on planet Earth that thought she was innocent, apart from a few nutcases, that tend to infatuate themselves with people like her. But what is interesting about this is just seeing her on the stand, just the ego that is Jodie Arias and this character that she's playing right now, the demure, bespectacled victim, you know, um, and just to watch how Martinez breaks her down and breaks her down, because I think she's detached herself so much that she might genuinely believe that she was abused and that she was in some sense justified, because you got to put yourself in her head. She was absolutely tortured by Travis. Like Travis was living a double life essentially. He was a strict Mormon. He was telling his family and all his friends that he was a virgin at 30 years of age, and he was waiting around to find the right partner that was in the Mormon faith. He's telling telling everyone he's going to marry a good woman that's in the Mormon faith, and that's why Jodie got baptized and became a Mormon for him. But he had no intentions of staying with her, no intentions at all, and he didn't see her as being worthy of marriage material because he wanted to marry a virgin, right? Um, so I think it is legitimate to sympathize with Jodie in some sense, because what you're going to see is that buried deep, deep down within her here is some intense grief and regret at what she's done, and regret at the fact that what she thought her life was going to be with this Travis is never going to it's never going to happen. And eventually it comes out and Martinez gets it out of her. So she's not a complete black soul. There is some light within her, but she's psycho.
Nido Avenue in East Mesa.
Is that an apartment, or is that, or were you renting a room?
I was renting a room.
And in that room that you rented, you kept this journal, right?
Yes,
So no one really had any authority to go into your room, right?
that's not right.
Well, are you saying that people in that house went through your journal? Is that what you're saying?
I'm not saying that.
So you did have an expectation that your journal would remain private there, right?
Thanks, Raven. Thanks so much. I'll talk to you soon, all right? Hey, Smiley. Good to see you.
While it was at home, yes.
So you're saying that somebody broke in and looked at your journal? Is that what you're saying?
No, because that would be at home.
Well, you kept your journal at home, didn't you?
I took it everywhere with me.
So what you're saying is if you went somewhere, it could have fallen into the wrong hands. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes,
You never reported to the police that your journal ever went. Anybody ever looked at your journal, correct?
I don't think that's a crime, so no, I didn't.
Well, ma'am, did I ask you if it was a crime?
No, you didn't.
Are you a lawyer? Do you know what a crime is and what isn't?
I have a pretty good idea, but I'm not an attorney.
And so if somebody broke into your house and read your journal, you're saying, you wouldn't report it because you wouldn't think that was a crime, right?
That's right. Not the breaking and entering part, just the reading the journal part.
Oh, so now you're drawing a distinction, but isn't this where this journal was kept most of the time? With you in your home?
No, I misunderstood what you said. My understanding was that you were talking about if somebody was looking in my journal, if I would have reported that. No, I would not have reported somebody reading my journal to the police.
Part of this encounter that you had involving the Tootsie Pops also involved braids, correct?
Yes,
And you have a definite opinion on the braids, don't you?
yes, I have an opinion.
You think they're hot, don't you?
I guess.
Well, no, you're the person that knows. We don't want you to guess. You think that the braids are hot, don't you?
I think cute is more appropriate.
Oh my God. It's okay just to say you think they're hot, Jodie.
Ma'am,
Good question, Carmen. Why is nobody objecting to his questioning? I am fine with it, but I'm wondering why he's allowed to be so aggressive. Well, see, this particular video that I'm playing, the objections and the sidebars are all cut out, so it's a continual stream. But there's countless objections from the defense, but you're just not going to see them in this particular video, but they are there.
Let's take a listen then. I'll have this marked as an exhibit. It's part of the conversation that you had with Mr. Alexander back on May 10th of 2008. I'll mark it, I'll have you listen to it to see whether or not that is your voice and whether or not we're talking about the braids.
You know what I really liked is when we were in the bath with the candles and I had the braids. And some of her bubbles that was on top of.
Oh, I love the braids.
I know, those are hot.
That was your voice, right?
Yes,
And you're talking about braids, right?
yes,
And you're talking about how much you like them, right?
yes,
And you're also saying that they're hot, right?
yes,
And this encounter involving the Pop Rocks and Tootsie Pops also involved braids, right?
yes.
So you enjoyed those braids, right?
God.
I don't, it's not a yes or no answer.
Well, we did hear you saying that you enjoyed them, right? Do you want to hear it again?
No,
She's just trying to derail him here, right? She thinks she's being so clever.
You did hear that, right?
I said I like them.
When you say that you like them, isn't it true that that means that if there's something that's enjoyable,
Yes,
right? And you also said that they were hot, right?
yes,
So during your sexual encounters with Mr. Alexander, if you wore braids, you thought they were hot and you liked them, right?
I liked his attention.
Yes, go.
Does anyone just envisage a Monty Python foot just squashing her? Just answer the question. It's not that important.
Hot and liked him.
Restate the question.
When you were with Mr. Alexander, isn't it true? If you wore braids, you liked them.
Yes,
And with regard to the braids, isn't it true that when you were with Mr. Alexander, you thought the braids were hot?
okay.
Oh, no, I'm not asking for an okay. I'm asking for you to tell me the truth. What is it that you believe?
I believe that he thought it was hot, so it was hot.
So what you're saying here with regard to exhibit number 460 and that telephone call that was played during your direct examination, you're saying you lied?
No,
Well, you want to listen here when you say
Very
that they're
smug,
hot?
Tracy. Very smug.
I just heard it.
Right.
She's
And
very
it doesn't
smug
say
because she
anything
thinks she's
about
doing well.
you doing this for Mr. Alexander anywhere, does it?
No, that's implied.
It's implied. Let's listen to it.
You know what I really liked is when we were in the bath with the candles and I had the braids. And some of her bubbles that was on top of.
Oh, I love the braids.
I know, those are hot.
That's your voice, right?
Yes, and Travis's.
I can't help myself but wondering what this guy's thinking, you know, the typist here. He must have an opinion on what's going on.
Did I ask you if that was Travis's voice, man?
I didn't know which voice you were talking about.
Did I ask you if that was Travis's voice?
No,
We're talking about your voice. That was your voice, right?
yes,
And you do say that those braids are hot, right?
yes,
And you said it because you believed it, right?
yes.
These two entries that we have here, these journal entries. Exhibit number 456. You start them out by dating them at the upper left-hand corner of each of that one, which is exhibit 456 and 458. You also date it on the upper left-hand corner or the left-hand corner. Do you see that?
Yes,
And you've already told us that there are no dates in between the Sunday 12008 and Thursday 12408, correct?
correct.
And you looked at the journal, right?
Yes,
There are no entries between those two dates, right?
that's right.
And it's fair to say that September 22nd of 2008 falls between this gap here, correct?
Correct.
And nowhere do you mention either in this January 24th of 08 or January 20th of 08 document, you don't mention anything about this physical encounter with Mr. Alexander that you told us happened on January 22nd of 2008, do you?
No, I would have never.
I'm not asking if you would ever. Do you mention it there?
I said no.
And with regard to not mentioning it there, nothing stopped you from mentioning it, right?
Yes, something did stop me.
So you're saying that somebody held your hand and stopped you from writing that?
I'm not saying that.
Are you saying that somebody came into your house and stole your journals and said, you know, and took whatever was the journal there so that took the journal so you couldn't write in it?
I'm not saying that.
You had the ability to write in it, right?
Yes.
She's actually enjoying this silly, pedantic game here.
You had the free will to write in it, didn't you?
Yes.
And there is nothing there, correct?
Referencing that incident?
It's a game of semantics.
Pardon?
Do you mean referencing that incident?
I can't hear what you're saying.
Do you mean referencing that incident? There's nothing there regarding
Right,
that?
there's nothing referencing that incident between those two dates, is there?
There is not.
The reason it's not there is because it didn't happen, right?
That's not right.
You do say in exhibit number 456, I haven't written because there has been nothing noteworthy to report, right?
That's right.
So to you, getting this injury to the left ring finger, that's no big deal then, right?
That's
what
not
you're
what it
saying?
says.
Pardon?
That's not what it says.
I'm not asking you what it says, I'm asking you what you think. It's no big deal to you then, right? Right?
That's not right.
Well, you came in, you told us about it, right? But it's not written in your journal, right?
No.
You didn't call the police, right?
No.
You didn't get any medical care for it, right?
Not professional medical care.
Ma'am, did you go to a doctor to get it looked at?
No.
Did you go to a hospital to get it looked at?
No.
Did you go to a friend's house or an acquaintance to tell them about it?
Definitely not.
And with regard to the conversation that you had with Detective Flores back on July 16th of 2008, you didn't tell him anything about that, did you?
No, definitely not.
In fact, you gave him a different story, didn't you?
Yes.
You told him something about these two people and how you got that injury to that finger, right?
Yes.
So you're saying that what you told the detective there was a lie.
Yes.
So you, in your view, when do you decide to tell the truth? When you're in this court and no place else? Is that what I'm hearing from you?
No.
I mean, just because you're in this court doesn't mean you have to tell the truth. That's what you're telling us, right?
That's not what I'm telling anyone.
And nothing has stopped you from telling this story ever.
If nothing else, to be fair to her, as repugnant as she is, you have to admire her tenacity and strength, right?
Correct?
That's not correct.
You have free will, don't you?
Yes, I do.
Nothing the detective did stopped you from telling him, right?
Flores, no.
Nothing stopped. You had a car back then, didn't you?
When?
When this supposedly happened, January 22nd of 08.
Yes.
You could have driven yourself to a hospital, right?
Yes.
You could have. Do you remember telling us about an incident that occurred in August of 2007 where you caught Mr. Alexander kissing some other girl, right?
Yes.
And you told us that, well, with regard to that incident, I called my father, right?
Yes.
And you told him some things about you had seen and what had happened the day before, right?
Yes.
Nothing would have stopped you from calling your father to tell him that, right?
Well, sorry, I'm kind of hyper literal sometimes.
Yes or no?
Nothing did that day.
Yes or no? Would anything have stopped you from calling?
Hyper literal. There's a phrase, guys, to put in your vocabulary. Hyper literal.
Your father?
Maybe, but
Well, ma'am, you didn't have any problem calling him in August of 2007 and complaining, did you?
I did have a problem with it. He had to convince me to tell him.
Well, you called him and you told him, right?
Eventually, yes, I did.
You called him and you told him, right?
Yes.
You could have called him and said, hey, I got this problem with my finger. You had a telephone, right?
I didn't have a problem with my finger then.
Well, I thought that you told us when you testified that on January 22nd of 2008 was when you had this finger injured by Mr. Alexander. Do you remember telling us that?
Yes, January, yes.
And so in January 22nd of 2008 or any time thereafter, you had a telephone, right?
Yes,
You could have called your father and could have told him, right?
could have, yes.
But you didn't.
I wouldn't have, no, I did not.
And no one knew about this injury or this supposed or claimed injury to the little finger until after you killed Mr. Alexander, right?
That's right.
Now, that was a significant day, January 22nd of 2008, correct?
Yes,
It was significant for a number of reasons, including the fact that you claimed that
Yeah, Happy thought she was diagnosed by one of the prosecutor's expert witnesses, a psychiatrist, as being a borderline personality disorder and a highly narcissistic.
on January 21 of 2008, you caught Mr. Alexander masturbating to some images of boys, correct?
This is so vile if this is a lie.
I only saw one image. It was a boy.
Ma'am, didn't you say that there were images? There were more than one?
There were more than one image. I only caught a
So
quick
was
view
there
of
more
one
than one
image.
image? I'm sorry, was there more than one image, ma'am?
Yes,
Okay, but you only saw one, right?
one
According
clearly,
to
yes.
you.
Mhm.
Is that yes?
That's yes.
And that was the day before this supposed thing happened on January, or where he had this violent issue with you on January 22nd of 2008, right?
That's right.
And if we go again to this entry here of 456, I haven't written because there has been nothing noteworthy to report. That's what you wrote, correct?
Correct.
The way you explain it to us here, this issue involving this claimed issue involving Mr. Alexander, that's pretty noteworthy, isn't it?
Not for my journal, but
Is it
yes,
noteworthy?
in reality, I guess it is very noteworthy.
It's noteworthy to you, isn't it?
It is today.
It's noteworthy to you, isn't it?
I already answered your question.
And the answer is yes or no.
Yes.
And it's so noteworthy
Oh, that was the first little glimpse of Jodie's temper there.
to you that you waited until after you killed Mr. Alexander to tell anybody about it, right?
I waited years.
The answer is, did you wait until after this prosecution started, after you were charged, to tell anybody about it, correct?
Overruled.
Yes, I waited years.
And ma'am, one of the things that the way you made it sound was that he had a problem, right?
He did have a problem.
That's what you claim, right?
That's the reality.
That's what you claim, correct?
Okay, yes.
When back then there was this problem, did you call, for example, the way you made it sound is he had this huge problem. Did you call, for example, Child Protective Service?
No,
I mean, you made it sound that there was such a big problem that he even went and spent the night somewhere at a friend's house and they had a child, and that concerned you. Do you remember telling us that on direct examination?
yes,
And yet you didn't go to that person and tell him, hey, he's got this issue, did you?
no,
You didn't go to the police department and tell him anything, right?
no.
You chose to keep that allegation until about 2 years ago. Is that right?
I think it's almost 3 years ago at this point. No. I think it was almost 3.5, 4 years ago at this point.
Pick a year. What year did you disclose?
2009 was when I first
And
told somebody.
you were arrested back in July of 2008, right?
Yes,
And when this detective interviewed you, you didn't tell him anything about it, did you?
definitely not.
And you could have, though, right?
In theory, yes, I could have.
Ma'am, one of the things that happened with regard to this particular issue is that there was a hearing that was scheduled involving this, What time did this allegation happen?
So she changed her story twice. Her first story was that she hadn't seen Travis since April and wasn't even in the apartment. Then the second story, she admits that she was there, but they had intruders, two masked people, a male and a female came in and beat up Travis, tied them both up, and killed Travis. And then the third story is the one here for the trial, that she did indeed kill Travis, but it was in self-defense because she dropped the camera when she was taking pictures of him in the shower, and he went into a rage and attacked her. So of course she stabbed him 27 times, shot him in the head, and slit his neck, his throat from ear to ear.
When do you claim that, we know the date, what time do you claim that you saw this masturbatory activity?
It would have been in the afternoon after my morning shift.
Ninjas, yeah.
And what time would that have been then?
I don't know the exact time, but it was afternoon before, well before it was dark. It was still light out.
Okay, can you be more specific? Was it noon?
It was after noon.
All right, was it 2 o'clock?
Objection, ask and answer, Sheriff says.
Restate the question.
If it was so noteworthy, why can't you remember the time?
It was kind of traumatic.
So,
I think this is when she starts introducing the famous fog. If there's any details that are going to be hard for her to explain, then there's a fog that has descended upon her because of all her PTSD, right, that she's suffered due to the torment and the abuse that she's taken from Travis. So during the murder, the fog comes down, and after the murder, the fog comes down, and she can't really remember anything.
what, if, just because, weren't your senses heightened at that time that you saw this? Didn't you get angry or upset?
Objection, on question.
Were you angry?
I was sick to my stomach.
Ma'am, were
I
you
was not
angry?
angry.
Were you angry?
I became angry later, but not in that moment.
Were you angry at that time, ma'am?
I said not in that moment.
So the answer is no, right?
Yes.
Were you upset at that time?
Yes.
So if you're upset, aren't you kind of, your senses heightened at that time to know the time?
Objection, she said answer the question.
Can you repeat that?
Weren't your senses heightened because of this anger to at least know the time so if somebody could check it out?
Well, you said because of anger, but I wasn't angry at that moment.
Well, then, you see this, you're not angry and you're not upset, right?
I am upset.
Oh, you are upset. If you're upset, don't you think that that would have heightened your senses over what you just saw?
My mind doesn't work like that.
So the answer is no then, right?
Objection, ask and answer.
Yeah, I watched Happy Thoughts a long time ago. Yeah, I remember watching all that. There's quite a lot of interrogation, isn't there? It's a complete loon. She's doing yoga, she's doing headstands, she's singing to herself. They actually they got her evaluated to check her IQ and her competence because of her strange behavior.
It kind of moved in slow motion, so if that's heightened,
Is it yes or no, ma'am?
it's kind of a matter of opinion. I don't know.
And I'm asking for your opinion.
Again, ask and answer. She can't speculate.
Overruled.
Whether it's heightened, my perception of things, is that your question?
Right. At that time when you're viewing this, the way you described this, bad act.
What you'll notice as well, though, Cam and Chaos, is that Juan is exactly the same with when he's cross-examining the defence's expert witness, the psychotherapist, and that's very interesting to watch because this psychotherapist, Alice Lavallette, takes it personally, and it's obvious that she's taken his manness personal. And to me, it feels like she thinks she's on some feminist crusade, and she just piles on the problems for the defense. It'd be interesting to see what you think. I mean, a prosecutor is entitled to be quite forceful, right? Females and males. I mean, I'm sure we've all seen many female prosecutors being pretty shouty in the courtroom. It's just it's up to the discretion of the judge, you know.
Well, I'm not sure. I mean, it's something I'm never going to forget, but I wish I could.
You're never going to forget it, is what you just said, right?
That's right.
But you have forgotten the time.
I know it was the afternoon.
Ma'am, I'm asking you for the time.
Objection, mischaracterized her testimony. She said she doesn't know the time.
Restate your question, sustained.
You said that you'll never forget it, right?
The incident.
Right. And I'm asking you, isn't it true that you forgot the time?
Objection again, and mischaracterized the testimony. She said she never knew the time.
Sustained, rephrase.
You said that you had just been let or out from Mimi's Cafe, right?
For a little while.
Pardon?
For a little while. I was off work for a little while.
You worked at Mimi's Cafe, right?
Yes.
You had been working that day, right?
Yes.
Your shift was over, right?
Yes.
Yeah, Happy Thoughts, that's right. Her defense attorney, Kurt Nurmi, tried multiple times to get himself off the case, but Judge Stevens wouldn't allow it, and kind of explains his body posture, right, and his unprofessionalism. It's unbelievable. But he actually he descended into some pretty ill health right after this trial, and he pretty much blamed it on the stress that Jodie was putting upon him. And then he ended up writing a book about the case, and he got disbarred for it. And yeah, didn't go well for him.
What time did your shift
Oh, hey, Jackie, good to see you.
start?
It varied.
That day. What day?
Oh, really? Happy Thoughts. I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
What time did your shift start?
In the morning.
What time?
Sometime in the morning. I don't know the exact time.
You don't know the exact time, yet you knew that you had to be there on that day at a certain
Yes.
time? What time does Mimi's open?
I've never opened Mimi's, so I'm not sure, but they open early.
So you don't know the time that it opens, you don't know the time that you went to work, right?
Not the exact time.
Just the morning is what you can give us, right?
Yes, early morning.
So if you went at 10 o'clock, 10 to 12 would only be 2 hours, right?
That's right.
Was it an 8-hour shift, man?
No, they aren't 8-hour shifts.
So on that day, it was not an 8-hour shift, right?
That's right.
How many hours was your shift?
It depended on the flow of business.
I understand that it may depend on that. How many hours did you work on January 21 of 2008 on this day that this horrible thing you claim happened?
I would only be able to tell you a range.
How many hours then? Give me a range. Since what you're telling me is you don't know.
I know the range, but not the exact hours.
So you're telling me you don't know the exact hours, right?
Yes.
And anything else that you would give me would be a guess, right?
Yes.
And ma'am, do you have, I mean, you had a lot of memory for a lot of events involving sexual instances with Mr. Alexander.
Here's an interesting little quick poll. Type a 1 if you think that Martinez's style is acceptable, and put a 2 if you think he's going over and above what he should be allowed to do in terms of his forcefulness. So a 1 if you think it's fine, the way he's conducting himself, or put a 2 if you think it's dodgy. Because there was attempts by the defence team to get a mistrial declared due to prosecutory misconduct. So it'll be interesting to see what you guys think. I would put a 1. I think it's fine.
Yeah, you seem to be having problems with your memory here today. And you also alluded to a little bit that you have problems with your memory. Is this a long-standing thing that you've had problems with your memory, or is this just something that happened recently?
Compound question.
Sustained.
Your problems with your memory, is it a recent vintage?
Define recent?
I don't know, since you started testifying.
No, it goes back further than that.
How long far back does it go?
See, she's getting beyond just the semantic games now to actual sarcasm. She's one tough psycho.
I don't even know if I'd call it a problem.
Well, just tell me how far back it goes. You said you were going to tell me, so tell me, please.
How far back what goes?
We're talking about your memory problem, right?
I don't know that I'd really call it a problem.
Okay.
I don't remember every single thing that's ever happened to me in my whole life.
Ma'am, your memory issues, we're talking about those, right?
I wouldn't even call them issues, but okay, my memory?
Well, you don't want to call them problems, right?
No, I don't want to.
You don't want to call them issues, right?
I don't know. I really
Right,
don't.
you don't want to call them issues. You just told me that, right?
I didn't say I don't want to.
All right, so can we call them issues then?
Okay.
With regard to these memory issues that you claim to have, when did you start having them?
It depends on the type of memory issue.
If it benefits you, you have a memory issue?
Objection, argumentative, Your Honor.
Or if it hurts you, you have a memory issue?
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained.
Well,
When it hurts, sometimes I
ma'am, there's no question right now. You say that you have memory problems, but it depends on the circumstance, right?
That's right.
And give me the factors. I don't want to know about a specific circumstance. What factors influence your having a memory problem?
Usually when men like you are screaming at me or grilling me, or someone like Travis doing the same.
So that affects your memory problems,
It
right?
does. It makes my brain scramble.
So you're saying that basically what you're saying is Mr. Martinez's fault, that you can't remember things that are going on.
It's not your fault.
I'm not saying that. You're saying that, isn't it?
No, I'm not saying that.
Is there something about a certain decibel of the voice that creates problems?
Decibel, tone, content, sort of a combination of those factors.
When?
Objection, Your
What
Honor.
time?
This is just a stunt. Your approach.
You may.
What time, ma'am, did you get off of work for meetings?
In the afternoon,
Well, hold on. Let me finish the question. What time did you get off the meetings on January 21 of 2008?
Objection, ask and answer. She's already said repeatedly she doesn't know the time.
a time in the afternoon.
Can you be more specific
No.
about the time? Why not?
Because I don't think I was looking at my watch or my phone or any other clock.
Do you think Jodie Arias is like Clark Kent in Superman? When she has her glasses on, she's, you know, the gentle, timid Clark Kent. As soon as the glasses come off, she's super psycho.
Where did you go after you left Mimi's?
I went to Travis's house.
You went directly to Mr. Alexander's house, right?
That's right.
And what time did you get over to his house?
I'm sorry?
Couldn't hear me?
I couldn't hear you.
What time did you get over to his house?
Objection, ask and answer. She's already said she knows.
About 20 minutes after I left Mimi's.
And when you got there, ma'am, did you walk in?
Yes,
Front door?
yes,
Was it open?
yes,
Was it unlocked?
yes,
And you said you walked in and you went straight up the stairwell, right?
yes.
And you didn't say a word going up the stairwell, did you?
I'm sorry?
You didn't say a word going up the stairway, did you?
I don't remember.
Didn't call out his name, right?
I might have, yes.
And ma'am, in January 21 of 2008, you and he were broken up, weren't you?
Yes,
So it wasn't like you were boyfriend and girlfriend that you went over every day, right?
we were not boyfriend, girlfriend, but I went over almost every day.
Pardon?
We were not boyfriend, girlfriend, but I did go over almost every day.
You're mumbling, I didn't hear you.
We were not boyfriend, girlfriend, but I did go to his house almost every day.
And on this particular day, what were you there to do?
He needed help putting boxes up in his attic.
And had you talked to him about this previously?
Yes,
Was it via text message or was it via some other method?
I don't remember. It was discussed.
Was it via telephone?
Probably.
Well, ma'am, how could you discuss it by telephone if you were working at Mimi's?
It was discussed previous to my shift.
So what time did you discuss it then?
It had to do with, well, it wasn't that day. It was weeks ahead of time. It was about the Christmas things that were in his attic.
So now it wasn't that day that you discussed it, right?
I agree with every word of that. Happy thoughts. Yeah. That's why those on the high end of the narcissistic scale fall short so often because they just have no ability whatsoever to be self-aware. She definitely is on that high scale.
Once I got there, we were discussing it.
I want to know if that day that you claim this happened, if there was a telephone call in the morning.
I don't remember that part.
And if back then, what was your number? We've already heard it, but,
831-402-1901.
and that would have been the number that you called him on, right? That you used to call him. That would have been the telephone that you would have used to call him, right?
Usually, yes.
That was your telephone, right?
Yes, that was my cell phone.
And you say, well, normally I would use that to call him.
Yeah, Jackie, you have to hand it to her. She is holding her own here at this stage.
Pray tell, what other circumstances would there be that you wouldn't use your cell phone to call him?
Landlines.
Pardon?
Landlines.
You had a landline also at your home, right?
There were landlines in the homes where I lived.
Pardon?
There were landlines in the homes where I lived.
I'm not asking about the homes where you lived. I'm asking about the homes on January 20, your home on January 21 of 2008.
There was not a landline in that home.
There was not one, was there?
No, there was not.
So you would have had to use your cell phone to call him, right?
I probably would have used my cell phone if I called him that day, yes.
And now you're saying you're not sure if you called them that morning then, right?
I don't think I did because he didn't get up early.
Ma'am, so you're saying you didn't call him that morning, right?
I don't recall if I did or not.
Well then, I thought you said that there was some agreement or arrangement for you to go over there that day.
There was.
All right, what was the arrangement?
The arrangement was after Christmas, when he had packed up all of his things, to put him in the attic.
No, I'm not asking about that. I'm asking about the arrangement, about the time when you were going to go over. I don't really care about what the activity was. What was the arrangement about when you were going to come over, how that was going to work?
Just whenever it made sense.
So whenever it made sense, you were going to go over that day.
Yes, that day was a good day for us.
And You don't know if you talked to him in the morning about telling him that it was that day that you were going to be over.
I don't remember.
And if you didn't talk to him, your coming over would have been a surprise then after working at Mimi's, right?
No, he was expecting me the first time.
How would he be able to expect you the first time if you didn't call him in the morning to let him know you were going to be over that day?
Because it was already discussed.
When was it discussed? Tell me.
It was discussed multiple times in the weeks following Christmas.
I understand that it was discussed multiple times in the weeks following Christmas, but in those multiple times following Christmas, did you pick a date? January 21, let's just pick December 26th. You said to him on January 21 of 2008, I'm going to come over and help you with the Christmas decorations. Is that how it worked?
No.
No, it didn't, did it? You needed, if you had an arrangement, there would have been an agreement, wouldn't there have been?
We weren't that formal.
Well, but you just told me that you talked about it though, right?
It was discussed multiple times, yes.
Right. And so though all those multiple times that you discussed it, you agreed that it was going to be January 21, 2008 after you got off work from Mimi's.
He does get
Is
flustered,
that the
Jackie.
agreement?
Yeah.
Or is that the discussion?
I don't think it was that specific at all.
So what was the discussion then?
Just whenever we got together to do it.
So then he wasn't expecting you like you said he was when you came over that day.
He was hoping I would come over to help him with those things.
Ma'am, you keep saying he was hoping. How do you know he was hoping if he didn't even know you were coming over?
Based on our discussions.
So in your discussions, you told him, I want you to hope that I come over on the 21st?
I didn't tell him that.
Of course you didn't. The point is, you can't tell us anything about the circumstances of that day, can you?
That's not true.
Well, you can't tell us about the time, right?
Not a precise hour and minute.
You
no.
can't tell us what you worked at Mimi's, right? What hours, right?
Not the precise hours.
You can't tell us what time you got over to his house, right?
Not the precise minute.
You can't tell us if there was even a telephone call that morning, right?
I don't remember if there were calls that morning.
Right. Can't tell us anything. But you can tell us that you walked in and then there was this issue and you went in to help him with the Christmas decorations, right?
Yes.
And after you helped him with the Christmas decorations, you left, right?
Yes.
Drove away, right?
Yes.
Came back, right?
Yes.
And according to you, that's when you saw Mr. Alexander engaged in this masturbatory activity, right?
Yes.
And according to you, there were multiple photographs, but you saw one of them in particular, correct?
Yes.
And you then left, right?
Yes.
And you left in your car, right?
Yes.
And you went home and started driving around, right?
Went home, threw up, cried, then drove around.
Sure, you did all these kinds of things that afternoon, right?
Yes.
In your car, right?
I didn't throw up in my car.
What's that?
I didn't throw up in my car.
No, you drove off in your car, correct?
Yes.
Well, isn't that problematic since you were driving Mr. Alexander's car?
I wasn't driving his car yet. We were supposed to swap cars.
Well, he didn't have a car that day, right?
We were switching
Ma'am,
cars back
did
and
he
forth.
have my question
He
is,
did have a car.
isn't it true he did not have a car that day?
No, he had a car.
Well, ma'am, let's take a look at some of the text messages, okay?
Okay.
Okay. She's still quite confident.
I'm going to give you two sets, one with his responses and one without, all right?
Okay.
Take a look at
That's obviously Travis's
text
sisters.
messages between your telephone number and that of Mr. Alexander, correct?
Yes,
And the incoming means that that's your message coming in to him, correct? Ma'am?
wait, say that again, I'm sorry, I was
Do you
reading.
remember previously testifying that when incoming was on these text messages, that meant that that was you calling or that was you leaving the message?
That was me sending the message.
Right. And the outgoing is him sending it out, right?
Yes,
You also talked a little bit about the timing on there, right? The times that are designated.
yes,
You indicated that, well, it was 7 hours off, right?
yes,
That copy that I've given you has taken the time to write down the actual times minus 7 hours, right?
yes.
Go ahead and review it to make sure that the times that are on there
Yes,
are
that's
correct.
I believe.
Well, we don't want you to believe. Take your time, subtract 7 from there and see if that's correct. Because it's important here, we don't want you to believe.
I'm pretty sure they're correct.
When you say pretty sure, it means not sure to me.
No, I said I'm pretty sure.
And it does not include his responses on there or his outgoing messages, does it?
Yeah, it looks like it's blocked out.
Right. Take a look at Exhibit 462. Same thing, right? Except that this one includes his responses on there, right?
Yes,
The times are also written in there, correct?
yes,
And to the best of your knowledge, those are the accurate times that are written in there. Those are the accurate times that that message was either outgoing or incoming, right?
that is right.
Okay.
Hang on, let me check. Yeah, they look like they match.
Okay.
461, Your Honor.
61 is admitted.
Take a look at Exhibit 461. And let's talk about the times first. Do you see that, although it says 122:08 at 003850, someone has written 121:538 p.m. because it's a 7-hour time difference that you talked about previously on direct examination, right?
Yes,
And when we talked about, it's got your name on there, right?
that's right,
It's got your telephone number on there, right?
right,
And then it has the time of January 21st at 5:38 p.m., right?
yes,
And then it says, you say, I can't remember, am I coming in for you on Wednesday at 10:30? Isn't that what it says?
yes,
Then, you see the next one at 6:41 p.m., right? You claim that you have already left Mimi's Cafe in the early afternoon, right?
yes.
And so,
No, I didn't say early, I said sometime in the afternoon.
but you can't tell us the time, right?
That's right,
But at 6:41 p.m., you are talking about trading cars before FHE, right?
yes,
FHE stands for Family Home Evening, right?
that's right.
And Family Home Evening starts at 7 o'clock in the evening, doesn't it?
I don't remember.
Well, you were practicing Mormon, weren't you?
Yes, sort of.
And you attended Family Home Evenings. You were telling us about that, right?
Yes, I did.
And you attended them more than once, right?
Yes, I did.
And of all of those times that you attended, didn't they start at 7 o'clock?
I don't remember. They were in the evening, but I don't remember the time.
Would they have started at 10 o'clock at night?
No, they were not too late.
How long? Isn't it true that they lasted about an hour, Family Home Evenings?
Yes, roughly an hour.
And then the people that were there, the singles that were there, would get together and get involved in some sort of social activity, right?
Yes.
Bowling, that sort of thing, right?
My ward never went bowling.
Movies, something like that.
My ward never went to movies.
Going out to dinner.
It was usually at the church.
But it could also be at people's houses, right?
Yes,
And then at 7:19 p.m., you're sending him a text. Never mind, one of the stores I need to go to closes at 8 p.m. I'll just go tomorrow, right?
that's right.
That's evening now, right?
Yes,
You said that this incident involving the masturbatory conduct occurred in the afternoon, right?
it did.
So it would have happened before 7:19 PM, right?
Yes,
And you were already gone. You were wherever, right?
Oops, sorry guys, I lost my connection there. Give me a second. I've had to go over to my mobile data, so I hope this works all right.
yes, I did.
And then you went out and got him something from, I think it was Starbucks or something, and you brought him something over. Do you remember saying that?
Not that day.
Well, then you went over to his house though, right?
I did.
And you went over and then you had sex with him, right?
Yes.
What time did you go over to his house?
It was in the evening.
What time?
Don't know the time.
Well, if he's going to family home evening, he's not going to be around. If it starts, assume it starts at 7. He's not going to be around at 7 o'clock, is he?
Restate your question. Listening.
If, just for hypothetically speaking, man, if family home evening starts at 7 o'clock, he's not going to be home at 7 PM, is he?
Jackie, I think she has the memory of what she did buried deep down right now. She's one of these people that is capable of disassociating to a high degree, and I think she's convinced herself that the genuine torture that he actually did put her through somehow equates to this story that she's conjured up about the actual physical abuse and the her feeling trapped and him demanding sex constantly. Um, so she's capable of playing the role very well because it is buried so deeply, but it comes out eventually. Martinez just picks away at her and picks away at her and just presents just too much reality to her through the pictures that he shows her, the descriptions, and she does crack eventually. Um, it's um, it's something to behold.
If he went, then he wouldn't be.
I'm not asking if he went. If it starts at 7 o'clock in the evening, he would not have been home then, right?
He went to FAG.
It wouldn't necessarily mean that because it doesn't mean that he went. But that night,
Ma'am, I'm saying hypothetically. That means assume
okay,
that
yes.
he went to family home evening. And if it started at 7,
Absolutely,
would-
Alice. Yeah.
have been at his house, right?
That's right.
And if he has become involved in this masturbatory conduct, why are you worried about trading cars with him?
I think he wanted to trade the car.
It's worth saying as well, guys, that at this precise stage of the trial, she is still eligible for the death penalty because there's everyone knows that she's guilty here, right? She gets found guilty, but after that point, then it's the penalty phase. So there was still a chance that she was going to get the death penalty here, and it was up to the jury, obviously, to decide on that. And I think there was maybe only one or two that hung the jury, and then there was a second trial to decide on the penalty phase, and it was hung again. So then it was an automatic life sentence. So just bear that in mind as this is going through, and watching her demeanor and her calmness. She has the death penalty, as an option.
And this is not him writing that out there, is it?
I wanted to do it before I could cheat. He wanted to trade the car.
Well, why don't we take a look at his, which is 462. This is the one that includes his responses, right?
Yes.
Take a look at it and see who's concerned about trading cars. It indicates the back and forth involving the car, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
I move for the admission of exhibit number 462.
No objection.
462 is admitted.
Ma'am, do you know who Alice Laviolette is?
Yes.
She's somebody that is assisting you in this case, isn't it?
Yes.
Isn't it true that you told her that the masturbatory conduct involving Mr. Alexander took place while he was on the computer?
No, I never said that.
Isn't it true that you've heard a statement from her indicating that you told her that masturbatory conduct took place while he was on the computer?
No, I've never heard her say that.
Ma'am, were you here at a hearing?
Objection, Your Honor.
And isn't it true that you heard Ms. LaViolette indicate that you told her that you saw Mr. Alexander masturbating to images on a computer?
No, I heard you say that in the hearing.
Well, ma'am, do you remember that I played a snippet with her voice on it?
Yes, but I couldn't understand it.
Did you hear that snippet? Yes or no?
I heard it, but I didn't understand it.
I'm not asking you if you understood it. Isn't it true that you were here when that snippet was played?
Yes.
And that snippet involved whether or not she had ever told the prosecution that you told her that you saw Mr. Alexander masturbating to images on a computer.
That's right.
Let me go ahead and continue with the text messages. This is now exhibit 462. And it includes the outgoing, which is Mr. Alexander's text messages, right?
That's right.
And we were talking about exchanging cars before going to FHE, Family Home Evening, right?
Yes.
And ma'am, you did indicate something about whether or not you called them, or did you say you did or did not call him that morning?
I said I don't remember.
So it could be true that you did not call him at all that morning.
Objection, comment, question.
Sustained.
So it is true that you do not know if you called him that morning. So, well, let me do this. It could be you did not call him that morning.
It could be because I don't remember.
And again, is this issue with your lack of memory because of the questions, the way they're being posed?
No.
It's the fog.
Does it have to do with the volume of the person asking you the questions?
No, I think the length of time.
Is it yes or no? The volume.
Then that would be no.
So at 7:20, you sent her or send him a text message. Never mind, one of the stores I need to go closes at 8. I'll just go tomorrow. So that was 1 minute later. It's the same message that you sent before, correct?
That's correct.
And then Mr. Alexander sends you a text message at 7:24 p.m., right?
Right?
And he says, I got a ride from some peeps in the ward now. You can just go get it. Let me know when you made the exchange. Isn't he telling you that he went to the family home evening there?
Yes,
So he did go to the family home evening, right?
I'm assuming.
Well, there's nothing else that's indicated here other than family home evening, right?
That's right.
And family home evening, from your experience, when you were going, how long does it last?
Usually about an hour. Depends on the event. Sometimes there are special events that go longer.
And then there are other events that may come along afterwards, right?
I don't know. I usually went home after FHE.
To your knowledge, man, these family home evenings, did they end after the hour, or were there chances sometimes, even though you may not have attended, that they would go on longer than that?
Objection calls for speculation is what happened on January 21st.
Overruled, that was not the question.
I guess that's always a chance.
Well, I'm asking from your knowledge when you were going.
Typically, we all dispersed. It was a Monday night. We didn't hang out too late.
Okay. Then at 7:25, you send him a text message that appears to be in response to that one, right? Because it's 1 minute later, right? And you say, I'm almost asleep, we'll see, right?
Right?
And what you're talking about is exchanging the car, right?
Yes.
The big concern here is exchanging the car, right?
Yes.
Doesn't have anything to do with what you claim you saw, right?
We're talking about the car in this text message.
Right. It doesn't, and the point here is that you're talking about very pedestrian issues, such as exchanging a car. You're not talking about, Travis, I saw you masturbating or anything like that, right?
It wasn't a pedestrian issue with Travis.
Pardon?
The car was not a pedestrian issue with Travis.
Well, so you're equating this issue with the car the same as him masturbating to images of kids. Is that what you're saying?
Not by a long shot. No, that's not what I'm saying.
Then he's talking about, you obviously don't need it that bad. I got a ride so you could go get the car. Now you're going to sleep? That's what he tells you, right?
Yes.
He's made or tried to make arrangements for you to pick up your car, right?
I don't remember which car I was driving.
Well, he didn't have a car because he got a ride with somebody else, right?
That's not why he got a ride.
Well, when he's riding with somebody else, his car's not with him, right?
That's right.
And so he's without a car at family home evening or wherever it is that he went, right?
Yes.
You have a car, right?
Yes.
His car, right?
Objection, she's asked and answered.
I don't remember which car I was driving.
Well, it wouldn't have been his car because you wouldn't have needed to exchange his car for his car, right?
It would have been mine or his.
Right. So you're driving your car, right?
Objection, asked and answered.
Overruled.
I've already said that I don't remember which car I'm driving.
There, you indicated previously that after this happened, you went home and he kept trying to call you over and over, right?
I had voicemails from him or missed calls.
It means he kept trying to call you over and over again, right?
Right.
Whether he left voicemails or whatever, he kept trying to call you, right?
Yeah, he did.
And you didn't respond to those calls, right?
Not immediately that I remember.
Well-
I was in the visitation center, the visitor
Excuse me?
center, so I had my phone volume off.
You were what?
I was at the visitor center,
What visitor center are you talking about?
the one next to the Mesa Temple.
And is that where you went after this incident happened?
That's where I ended up after driving.
Is this where you were almost asleep?
No, this was after the fact.
So now you're back at home.
Yes.
Right? And in between then and, well, in between what you say you saw and when you were home, that's when you have all these calls, right?
From the time I ran out of his house, he called.
From the time you ran out of his house till what time at night are these calls coming in?
Till I called him back.
When? What time?
As soon as I left the visitor center, I called him.
Right? So you're sure that there's a bunch of calls that he made to you, and then they sort of piled up, whether they're voice messages or missed calls, and then you returned his call, right?
That's how I remember it, yes.
Okay. Actually, that's not the way it really went on that day. Isn't it true, ma'am, that there were actually 5 calls that day between you and him, where he called you 5 times and you called him back 5 times? Did you know that?
That there were many more than 5. There may be 5 from his cell phone.
I'm asking cell phone to cell phone, and you're saying that at that time you only had your cell phone, right?
Thanks, Tracy. Thanks for popping in, and enjoy your Easter dinner there, okay? Talk soon.
I only had my cell phone.
Right,
At the visitor center.
right. And he left you 5 calls, or he left you calls, right?
Yes.
And actually, there were only 5 calls from him all day long to you on the 21st. Isn't that true?
That's not true.
Isn't it true there was only 5 return calls from you on that day?
That might be true.
And in fact, when you say that he was calling you all the time, actually didn't go this way that you called him at 3:53 in the evening or the afternoon, didn't you?
That sounds accurate.
And then you called him again at 4:09 in the evening, didn't you?
That sounds accurate.
And he returned your call at 4:29, right?
I believe he did.
And then you called him back at 4:53, right?
That sounds accurate.
Well, I thought you said that there was this issue that you were not returning his call. It looks like you're returning his call and he's calling you back.
Well, that's probably a cell phone.
Well, what difference does it make if it's a cell phone or not? Isn't that a telephone call?
Yeah, but he has a landline that he called me on frequently.
Right, but I'm talking about on that day, the calls that were made. What was his landline number, ma'am?
I don't have it memorized. It was just in my phone as Travis Alexander.
So you call,
She takes such great delight in her vocabulary and how she speaks, doesn't she? She's very precise. She speaks almost like a scalpel. Surgical.
you called him at 4:53, isn't it true, p.m., and he returned your call then at 4:54 p.m. Do you remember that?
I don't recall that specific, but
I guess that's what hyperliteral means, isn't it?
Isn't it true he then called you back at 5:11 p.m.? Remember that?
not specifically.
How about him calling you back at 5:20 p.m.?
I don't remember specifically.
And how about him calling you back at 5:48 p.m.?
I just know he called me a lot that day.
And then you returned his call at 5:53 p.m. Do you remember any of that?
The time sounds accurate.
This may surprise a few of you, or maybe not, but she apparently adjusted really well in prison. She's apparently a bit of a queen bee. She's got lots of friends, although she does get in trouble a lot with the guards for talking back. But apparently she's quite popular in prison. I don't know if that would surprise any of you or not.
Well, then if we go then to 462, which is the text messages, you have these calls and then it picks up with text messages. You see that?
Yes,
The communication does, right?
yes.
So there was never a time when, as you said previously, where you and he were not communicating. You're either communicating by telephone or by text message, aren't you?
No, there's a gap.
Well, you said that it was right that you called him at 5:53 p.m., right? You just said that that sounds right.
It sounds about right. I don't remember the times.
Right. And then the first message after this call that you said sounds right at 5:53 p.m. is at 6:41, right?
Yes.
Less than an hour later, right?
The text, yes.
And then there's one at 7:19, right?
I know, Alice, right? You know how we've spoken about how long it generally takes for the condemned life prisoners to actually accept this new life. I think you mentioned it was something like 6 or 7 years. Is that right? Because we used to conjecture, how long it's going to take poor Chrissy Poos. Um, but maybe some people, perhaps like Jodie, are capable of adapting really quickly. Okay, like an average of 8 years. Yeah. Obviously, Jodie is the outlier then, right? Sounds like it.
Yes.
And if we say, hypothetically speaking, that family home evening starts at 7, he's already at family home evening by the time that he sends you this text at 7:24, right?
That's right.
Yeah, Nancy, the word surgical somehow comes to my mind to describe her delivery, the way she speaks. Very precise.
You then say, at 7:29 p.m., I fell asleep and a phone call woke me up, right?
What date is that?
The 21st, man.
That's right. Okay.
I fell asleep and a phone call woke me up. I thought you said you were at the LDS Center off of Dobson and Southern.
Not by this time.
I thought you were asleep.
I went home and crashed. I'd been crying and I had a migraine.
So when did you go to sleep? Give us a time.
I don't have a time that I fell asleep. I went to sleep after I left the visitor center.
Well, when did you have time to sleep if you're calling him back and he's calling you, and then right after that, you begin texting back and forth? When is it that you find the time to sleep?
Well, I didn't sleep for a long period of time. I just dozed off.
Well, you do say at 7:25 p.m. that you're almost asleep. We'll see about this car transfer thing, right?
Right.
And then you put the Z's on there that indicates you're going to sleep, right?
I was very tired, yes.
And so you went to sleep. You say you went to sleep, right?
I was laying there very tired and I think I fell asleep.
Well, then you say at 7:29, 4 minutes later, I fell asleep and a phone call woke me up. That's when I sent you a text. That's what you say, right?
Yeah.
Well, when is it that you're sleeping? What's waking you up between those 4 minutes? What's
I
going
don't
on?
think I'm sleeping right then. I don't know. I fell asleep. He wanted me to get the car.
But he's at family home evening already, and he doesn't care because he's already at family home evening, isn't he?
He was a little upset because he got a ride because he thought I was going to go get it.
But it didn't happen, did it?
No.
And the big point going on here is not talking about anything that may have happened. You're not saying you're upset about anything. You're just talking about this car being exchanged, right?
We're talking specifically about the car exchange in the text message.
And you don't say, I'm upset, we need to talk, or anything like that, do you?
No.
You say you have a really bad headache, that you can barely move, right?
Yes.
And that's at 7:36, right?
Yes.
And then there's a gap of approximately 2 hours or an hour and 45 minutes, which could be with an activity with family home evening, right?
Yes.
And he says, all right, I'll get it tomorrow then, right?
He says for me to get it tomorrow.
All right, get
Yeah,
it tomorrow then, right?
yeah,
Yes.
good on.
In other words, make the whatever exchange of cars that's going to happen, let's just do it tomorrow, right?
Yes.
Or have you do it tomorrow, right?
Right. Whichever.
Which indicates you aren't going to get together that night, are you?
At the moment, yes.
Not at the moment. It says, do it tomorrow. Isn't that what it says?
When that text was sent, yes.
Okay, but then you want to talk to him, right?
Yes.
And That's at 9:16 p.m. You say, can you talk right now? And he says, no, not right now, right?
Yes,
Presumably, if he went to family home evening, I'm not saying that he did, that's probably what he's doing, if he did go, right?
if he did go.
If he
Maybe,
did go,
if
right?
family home evening is still going on at that hour.
And then, but previously, ma'am, you told us that he was the one that wanted to talk to you, right? Didn't you tell us that? That he kept calling until you relented, and then you went over, right?
He did want to talk to me, yes.
Right. But it looks here that, like, you want to talk to him, doesn't it?
I do now, yes.
And then you're still not together at 11:33, and you sent him a message, how long, right?
That's right.
How long is he going to be out, is what you're asking him, aren't you?
Know how long till he was ready to talk?
Well, that's part of, given what we've seen about this relationship, isn't that part of your jealousy because you want to know what's going on with him that night?
Objection on that.
Sustained.
Ma'am, how long?
Anyone in here that's interested in reading the book that Juan Martinez wrote about this trial and about the investigation, I have the audio book and I have the PDF for anyone that prefers to read on a Kindle or on an Amazon Fire. And if anyone's interested, just just drop me an email and I can send it on to you. That in the chat there for you guys, okay? And anyone that's listening back to this at a later point, and my email will obviously be in the description as well. I can send off the PDF or the ebook if you prefer listening to it, or both if you want.
That's you saying, how long before we can talk, right? Isn't that what it means?
Yes.
And then he says to you, and the times aren't there, but he does, and by that I mean they weren't written in. It says, did you use my phone this morning without asking, right?
Yes.
So if you got together with him, it was after 11:33, after he got done doing whatever he was doing, right?
What was that question?
If you got together that evening, it was after he got done with whatever he was doing.
That's right.
And so it doesn't seem like he's in a hurry to talk to you, does it?
I don't know.
It doesn't seem like he's all this, like this upset that you portrayed him, that he really wanted to talk to you about this issue that you say that you saw him engaged in, right?
Objection calls for speculation.
Sustained.
There are gaps here where he's doing whatever he's doing, and you're doing the asking how long, right?
That's right.
He then asks you whether or not you used his phone in the morning without asking, right?
Yes.
And you tell him that you did, right?
Yes.
And you ask why, and he says nothing, right?
Yes.
There's an issue about the deposit, and in fact, you're asking him if he made the deposit, right?
Yes.
And he told you that he did, right?
Yes.
Is he giving you money there?
Great comment, Nancy. You really hit the nail on the head there. I agree with that. Yep, he was genuine and determined that he was going to have a certain type of wife. Um, and it's not only the fact that he wanted a wife from the Mormon religion, he literally wanted, um, for lack of a better word, a clean, virginal Mormon woman to be his wife. And you're absolutely right, Jodie wasn't that kind of person. She'd been in a few relationships, right? Um, and she obviously converted to Mormonism for him, and she used her sexuality. And you wouldn't believe the things that she did, as you say, to try and. I'm not sure if I would agree quite with the word trap. I don't know if she was consciously trying to trap him, but she was definitely trying to win him. She was madly in love with this guy, and she moved up nearer to where he stayed, only a few miles away, apparently because she wanted to be closer to the Mormon faith. But they had already broken up by this point, even though they were still sleeping together. So he obviously knew that she was moving up there just to be closer to him. But what he would do is just randomly call her in the middle of the night to come over for, you know, a quick good time. And some of the stories are terrible. He would call her up, and then she would come to his door, and he would stand on the doorway, and she would give him oral sex, and then he would throw candy at her, and then she would leave. She was willing to do anything for him, and he did have a few sexual fetishes that she was willing to perform for him, and he was living a double life. He was telling everyone he was a virgin, literally a virgin at 30, and Jodie was his plaything, literally a plaything, and that was torturous. She thought that she was going to settle down with this guy, and it just drove her crazy.
What's the date?
Pardon?
What was the date on that one?
The 22nd.
I don't know what we were referring to there.
Well, you do say your text message does say, did you make the deposit?
Yes.
And he said yes. And then you said what?
Thank you. I'll make it up to you soon.
It looks like he lent you money there, doesn't it?
Yes.
Any idea how much money he lent you?
He lent me money in small increments. I don't remember.
And he would do it if you needed it, right?
If he could, he would. Yes.
And if you needed it, right?
Yes.
Now, the next day, that same day at 3:36 in the afternoon, you say to him, I'm going to need a ride. I'm off at 4 p.m. Text me. Still the issue with the car, right?
Yes.
Where's your car?
Probably parked at his house.
How'd you get to work?
He sometimes he drove me and sometimes I carpooled with a coworker.
So what happened on this particular day?
I don't remember.
What time did you get to work?
I don't remember. I usually worked in the morning, but sometimes I worked evenings also.
So in this day, you're going to get off at 4.
Yeah, Nancy, and he would only have untraditional sex with her. That was his way of um, justifying it to himself that, he was still not having premarital sex, I guess.
o'clock, right?
Well, in theory, if business permits.
But that's what it says there, though, right?
Yes.
And this is at 3:36. You want him to pick you up, right?
Yes.
How long was your shift usually? 4, 6, 8 hours?
Depending on the flow of business, typically it was 4 to 6 hours.
All right. And then at 4:04, you send him another text message and you say, scratch that. You're keeping me here till 5 p.m. Can you pick me up then? The lunch offer from my voicemail still stands. What?
And it is sad, Nancy, isn't it? I mean, it's okay to acknowledge that is sad what happened and still acknowledge what she did was so hideous. Those two things aren't mutually exclusive. It's too easy to be black and white, I think, with a lot of these true crime cases. I agree with you.
What are you talking about?
For him to pick me up.
Pardon?
For him to pick me up after work.
No, I'm asking about the lunch offer. I'm not asking about him picking you up.
I felt really bad for him and everything that happened. So I was just trying to make him feel better because if I were in his shoes, I'd want to jump off a bridge at this point.
What is also interesting is the fact that, to all intents and purposes, Jodie had a really good upbringing, secure and a loving family. It was actually Travis that had a more disturbing upbringing in childhood. I think his parents were drug addicts, and he had to basically make his life for himself. And he was fantastic at his job. He was a self-made man, and Jodie struggled. She was moving from job to job to job, and then she finally went to a conference in Las Vegas, where employers that Travis was working for were speaking, and that's so she started working for the same employers at that point. But yeah, there's nothing obvious that went on in her childhood. Although in this trial, she tries to they try to conjure up that image, but there's no evidence other than what she testifies to.
So what about the lunch offer? What are you talking about?
That's what it was. I offered to get him lunch.
Well, it's 4 o'clock in the afternoon, though. Lunch usually is noon, right?
Well, not for Travis.
And then he says, sure, I'm almost off, yay.
You're on fire, Nancy. I agree with every word of that again. She was a reminder to him that he was not pure either, and he was not really living the Mormon life or rules. He might have had some self-contempt too. Yeah, just see, like he couldn't control his lust for her, so he would give in to that lust, and then he would just be left with this cold reminder that he wasn't living the pure life. And she was always going to be associated with that for him. You know, he probably knew from the start he was never going to settle down with her. And he obviously wasn't honest with her about that, you know?
Are you eating? If so, just sit on in the counter, right?
Right.
Throughout this whole text message,
Perhaps she represented his self-loathing. Yeah, yeah. It's perhaps why he was able to be so distant and cruel to her, right?
in between you and him, there's no discussion about anything that may have happened on the 21st, is there?
Not in text messages, definitely not.
The answer is no, right?
No.
And in terms of the phone calls that you claim that were being made, there wasn't this barrage of phone calls from him that you didn't respond to. Actually, it was more give and take, wasn't it?
He left a barrage of phone calls at one period of time, yes.
Pardon?
He did. He left a barrage of phone calls.
Well, then let's just take a look at his phone records, okay? So that we can see.
I hate the way she said a barrage. A barrage of text messages there. So condescending. She chooses every word so carefully.
We'll see you back here at 3:25. Please remember the admonition. You are excused.
All right, guys, I shall leave that there with the frame on Jodie. There's another one part to this, which will conclude this first day of cross-examination. But we've been going there for almost 2 hours, so I think that's a good place to pause it. And I will probably be coming back to do the next part of the cross-examination either tomorrow or a follow-up day during the week. Thanks everyone for coming in. I had some really good comments. A lot of food for thought. It's an intriguing trial, isn't it? So I think the next thing that's going to be happening is we're going to be putting out the part 2 of the Russell Williams podcast that myself and Alice Rose did on the human condition project that we're on. We put out the first part, which is more at looking at the actual interrogation in more depth. That's already up on the channels. But we've got another hour or so of analysis after that, which I think some of you guys might enjoy. So that'll be part 2, and I think that'll be the next thing that's going out. And hopefully you guys can join us for that. It'll probably be it'll be a premiere rather than a live like this, but we'll be in the chat. And you never know, I might do a live afterwards as a kind of after show, maybe, if anyone would like to discuss anything that we bring up. But in the meantime, some shameless self-plugging here. I'm just going to put in the link for the Human Condition podcast channel. So there, so anyone can head over there. We're putting out the podcasts on both the Rabid Dog channel and the Human Condition channel just to begin with, just to kind of get it up and running. And then eventually we'll probably just cipher it off into the Human Condition so that we can concentrate on that. But yeah, thanks everyone again. And as I say, anyone that would like the PDF or the ebook version of Juan Martinez's book, it's called Conviction, and it's a really good read. Goes into a lot more detail and a bit more depth into his strategy regarding this trial. And what's interesting as well is that it's a strategy specifically with the character of Jodie in mind. There's a purpose behind his style, that he kind of uses to bring out what he needs within Jodie. So, all right, guys, thanks so much for joining me, and I shall see you guys soon. Good night.